platoon, one honor platoon in Paris Island. Got some crazy stories there. Tried to trick my drill instructor into giving me a phone call home during the Pugil sticks. Um, but no, it's one of the fondest memories I have. Outside of my deployments, I think Paris Island was fun. It's terrifying while I was there though. Completely terrifying while I was there.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine. I thought boot camp. I was 17 when I went. Skinny little guy, and I was terrified. But I can magnify that by whatever scale for the Marines, so I get it. All right. So after you graduated boot camp, where were you? Was it advanced infantry training, and then what units were you assigned to?
Yeah, so in the Marine Corps we have SOI, School of Infantry, which is the same thing as AIT, I guess, for the Army. I believe that's what they call it. Correct, Travis? Is that right? AIT? I believe so.
Yes, you're right. Yep,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay, so we have SOI, School of Infantry, and it's in Camp Geiger, North Carolina, which is in the same town as Camp Lejeune. It's out of the little town of Jacksonville, North Carolina. So I graduated Paris Island on November 16th of 2007. So I had my 10 days leave, but then they added on an extra 21 days for the Christmas holiday. So I actually had an extended period, which was great because I got to be on recruiter's assistance, got to walk around high school in my alphas and look cool, try to get a bunch of kids to just do what I had just done. But I went to School of Infantry in Camp Geiger, and you get your I was an 0300 field. That was my and that's when you get your specialization 0311, 0331, 41, and 51 and 52. So you got your 0311, your basic infantry rifleman. Your 31s have your machine gunners, the one that everyone wants to do because you get to shoot 50 cals and carry a saw. 0341s, the job no one wanted to do because it's the mortarman. You were called tube strokers, and you just sat back in the rear and dropped mortars all day. Nobody wanted to do that. The 51s, the other job everyone wanted to do, because that's the assaultmen. They get to carry the small rockets to shoot AT4s and blow up things, and all their training is use C4 and the fun stuff. Then you have the tow gunners, the 52s, which they were like, as even when I was there, phasing out of the Marine Corps, so barely any of us got to do that. You don't get to choose your MOS specialization when you get to SOI. It's neither the Marine Corps, but they do tease you by letting you ask what you want. So I remember I wanted to be an assaultman, and I found the sergeant. His name was Sergeant Carlisle, and if I hope he listens to this because I love him, but I was so mad at him at the time. I walked up to him as a private in the Marine Corps and said, "Sergeant, I want to be an assaultman. What do I need to do to be an assaultman?" And he said, "Well, give me a good PFT score, our physical fitness test, and we'll talk." So I worked my butt off and got a near 300 PFT, which is 20 pull-ups, 100 crunches in 2 minutes, and 3 miles in a little over 18 minutes. So we got up there, and then they were calling us into their office one by one and giving us our jobs. I walk in there. I look at him. I'm smiling ear to ear. I did exactly what he said. And he said, "Chilous, 0341, you're a mortarman." And my heart sunk, and I looked over at the sergeant who was in charge of mortars, and he said, "Welcome." And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to be a mortarman. So I I ended up training my entire time, School of Infantry and Mortarman. I ended up being the honor grad there, which was great. Um, Strangely enough, mortars came very easy to me. It was almost natural. It's like God put me on this earth to get bubbles in line with mortars. I became the honor grad, and at the time they were saying that we were getting ready to go to a unit after SOI. So just a little, I guess, inside baseball reference. When you graduate Paris Island, it's a big spectacle. Parents and families come. My girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, she showed up. My mom was there. It's a big spectacle. School SOI isn't like that. You have a graduation ceremony, but as you're graduating, the unit that's taking you is waiting outside the graduation, and that's when you realize like the show of the Marine Corps training is over. So you graduate SOI, and literally there's some lance corporal, some corporal sitting there probably with a cigarette hanging out of their mouth saying, "Get on the bus." And you get on the bus, and the whole world changes. You're no longer with drill instructors who are there to help you and train you. These guys are just, they don't like you because you're new. And so we ride the bus from Camp Geiger to Camp Lejeune. 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines, over there on A Street at the time. This is early 2008, February 2008. They're not on A Street anymore, I'm sure. So I haven't been to Lejeune in a while. But we get there, and it's just like you would expect, a bunch of lance corporals and corporals sitting out there just scaring you, putting on the show of like, we're going to destroy you, welcome to hell type things. Very effective. Very, very effective. Kind of thinking, what did I get myself into? Because I realized that in the Marine recruiting process, they talk a lot about Parris Island. Are you tough enough to handle 3 months of military training? Can you do the crucible? Can you run 3 miles? They don't tell you anything about getting to the fleet and getting to an infantry unit who's fresh off of deployment and just ready to destroy a bunch of brand new Marines. So I ended up being the 3rd Battalion Marines. Didn't get to go to Okinawa. Didn't get to go to San Diego. They told me I was going to Jacksonville, and I immediately thought, great, I'm going to Florida. And it ended up being North Carolina.
Right.
And I showed up there, and you said you've been to Jacksonville, North Carolina. It's not a fun place.
Nope. There's nothing going on.
Nothing to do there. But that's where I started my military service. Fortunately, I deployed quite a bit, so I wasn't in Lejeune very often. So that was good.
Kev, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about Mortar-man is, and I honestly didn't pick this up until I became an infantry commander, is the fact that is my most casualty producing weapon in the platoon. So it's just it's not the job that everybody wants off the bat, but by gosh, when it comes to fighting, you guys are the bread and butter of the platoon. So
oh yeah, everybody loves a Mortar-man in combat, man. They make fun of us in the rear, but when we get out there, they love us then. Yeah, no,
that's right.
I learned that very, very, very quickly in my first deployment in Afghanistan. Everyone loved Mortar-man then. Everyone wanted to be good buddies with Mortar-man then. So, and they also wanted to come by during a mission. Hey, mind if I drop around? You mind if I get around in? Let me get my camera ready. Let me drop around. No, I can't go out there and shoot your rocket, man. Let me shoot my members. So that was good.
So what unit were you assigned to initially after SOI?
3rd Battalion, 8th Marines. So I got issued to 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines, and I got put in weapons company. So I was going to be shooting the 81 because I'm sure Travis, with your familiarity with mortars, and maybe too, Ken, there's several different types of mortars. In the Marine Corps, we use the 60 millimeter and the 81. The 60 goes to your line units. So for us, it was Kilo, India, and Lima Company. They had the 60s. And weapons companies, we got to use the 81s, the bigger ones. So, which of course, I during my first deployment, I didn't use an 81. I actually got to use a 120 from the Army. But I can get to that a little later, which is kind of great. So I get attached to a weapons company, and we're standing there in formation, and one of the Marines, a corporal, standing out there and said, "Hey, who's the honor grad?" And I wasn't going to say a word. I was just standing straight. Didn't want to let him know that I was anything better than any. I was just one of these normal guys that just was waiting to get hazed and have it over with. But one of my fellow boots, as they called us, said, "Oh, that's Lance Corporal Chilous," which I became a Lance Corporal because I was the honor grad. I got like promoted, and you don't want to show up at the same rank as some of your senior Marines as a boot. So that just made me a target. So I wasn't very happy with that guy for diming me out about that. But yeah. So I was attached to 3rd Battalion Marines, weapons company, gun 2. So.
Okay, and now when you do these companies, do they normally deploy as part of like Muse or ARGs, or in your case, how did it work? So you report to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. So my first deployment, we just straight went to Afghanistan. My second deployment, I was on a MU.
Okay.
I was on the USS Kearsarge.
Okay. Yeah, she's been around a while.
Yeah, I learned that. Oh man, that was my second deployment. No, when I got there, 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines was gearing up to go to Iraq at the time. So that's where they had primarily been working out of. A lot of my senior guys had been to Ramadi. So I dealt with a lot of Marines fresh out of Ramadi, if you can imagine what that was like, meeting those guys. So we were all geared up training for Iraq, my entire build-up. And then halfway along the way, they decided to change it, and we were going to Afghanistan. And that, for some reason, terrified me. The thought of Afghanistan, it just seemed so vast and open and unpredictable. Iraq kind of seemed like a closed, maybe because it was more urban. I'm not sure, but when I heard I was going to Afghanistan, I was like, oh my lord, this is scary. So scary, in fact, that back to my first weekend in the fleet, I showed up to the fleet, 3rd Battalion Marines, and it was the President's Day weekend. They had a 96 coming up. They said, all you boots, you can't leave, you can't go home. You're going to stay here at the barracks and check in. Don't do anything dumb. We'll be back on Monday or Tuesday. And right before we broke for formation, he said, nobody get drunk, nobody get married. And they left. And I called my girlfriend, flew her into Onslow County, and we got married at the courthouse.
That's great. That's great.
So I got married on my President's Day 96, just like a boot would. That's the most boot thing a boot can do. I should have went ahead and bought a diesel truck with it too. So I show up that week, and my staff sergeant jokingly says, anyone get married? And of course I'm like, I did. So I got married, but geared up, going to Afghanistan, trained, went to the Mojave Desert in California to train to get ready for it. At this point, by the time I had deployed, I had built a reputation as being a pretty good gunner. So much so that I was an A gunner on the mortar, which is most boots are reserved for ammo men. We're the guys running back and forth with the ammo cans, breaking our backs over all these things. But by that point, I had established myself as a decent Marine. I stayed out of trouble. I was married, so I didn't get into much trouble. Listened well, did my job well, was all right in garrison, was presentable. So, kept my nose clean and kind of got a reputation as a guy who can gun pretty well. So most of the senior guys kind of leaned off me a little bit. So that was nice. But a few months before we deployed to Afghanistan, they said, hey, where we're going in Afghanistan, they're using 120s, the 120 millimeter mortar that the Army uses. And we're going to have some guys from the Army come here to Lejeune and teach us how to use them before our deployment. And I remember thinking, okay, when they get here, I need to learn all I can because I want to be a gunner for that 120. I had no idea how to break down what's going to be, but I said, I need to be a gunner. I don't want to be an ammo man. I want to gun that. So they came, they trained me. I paid all the attention I could. I got pretty good at the gun. And they're like, okay, this kid knows how to use his gun good. And when we deployed, we went into Helmand Province, which is in southern Afghanistan. And we went, at the time, it was one of the more kinetic and dangerous parts you could find in Afghanistan. And this is before the big surge of the 2009. So I got there election day 2008. I think that was the year President Obama won. I was flying to Afghanistan the day of the election, I believe, either the day before or the day of the election. And we got to Helmand Province, and they were saying this is one of the most dangerous places in the world, Marines. This province is about the size of Texas, and we only got one company to kind of hold it. And they said, we're going to break us up into little tiny companies and place you at different FOBs throughout Helmand Province. And we might even break down to sections and put you in little cops throughout the area. And they said there's this one place called FOB Caparetta. It's in a city called Nowzad. This is the crazy place. There's no civilians there. The British had been there for a while, and those guys are going to tag team out. We're going to take their spot. We're going to take over their FOB. But there's no civilians there. It's just kinetic all day, all night. It's Hollywood over there. And everybody's like, oh man, that sounds crazy, And they're like, we're going to build a roster, and we're going to put people. We're going to attach to different companies. That's what weapons company do. We get attached to other companies. And they took my gun and attached me to Lima Company, and Lima Company was going into Nowzad. So I was like, okay, so I'm going into Nowzad. I'm going to the Hollywood place. Great. And right before I did, my staff sergeant was like, hey, man, you're going to love it there. He's like, it's a mortarman's dream. There's no civilians there. It's just bad guys, man. You can shoot with impunity. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay, cool. That sounds all right. And then that's exactly what happened. We got to Nowzad, and it was as advertised. No civilians, a lot of fighting, back and forth, a lot of mortars, so many mortars. Got to be a part of Operation Eastern Resolve. That was in April of 2009.